appreciate your leadership. Next, we want to hear from Congressman Mike Conaway. He represents the Permian Basin, but he's also the chairman of the Agricultural Committee here in the House of Representatives.
Well, thanks, Joe, and I want to congratulate you and Henry Cuellar on bringing this much-needed relief to the oil export business. It's interesting that a country that would use sanctions as a weapon to try to bring Iran to heel, that we would be punishing the oil and gas business with sanctions of our own on exported crude oil out of the United States. We have unlimited imports into our country of crude oil, but yet we sanction and stop the export of crude oil, and that makes no sense. Markets that are more direct and freer of these artificial restraints are better. They price better. The consumer works out to have a better product as well. This increase, dramatic increase over the last 4 or 5 years, as a result of the private sector's work, their initiative, their risk-taking, their development of new techniques. None of this increase is coming on public property. This administration has restrained that significantly. So the increases that you've seen in production that are getting us to the point where we will have an opportunity to have crude oil exports is laid at the feet. The responsibility for that is laid at the feet of the hardworking men and women that I get to represent in the service sector, and the operators and the producers in West Texas that have made this happen, not only in West Texas, but in Eagle Ford and North Dakota. They're all active across all of those 3 shale provinces. This temporary reduction in price has obviously slowed some things down, but we all know that prices go up, prices go down. The oil's not going anywhere. It's in place, so when the prices get back up and it makes sense to go after that shale oil, the American producers will get that done. By that point in time, let's get the sanctions on exporting crude oil in the United States lifted off the backs of the oil and gas industry. We also need to work on liquefied natural gas exports, the broad panoply of energy exports this country should be about. It creates jobs in our country, wealth in our country, prosperity in our country. America is better off, and Americans are better off if we have a vibrant and productive oil and gas industry. And lifting these sanctions will go a long way in the right direction. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Next, we want to hear from Steve Pearce of New Mexico. He represents eastern New Mexico. More importantly, he plays on the Congressional Republican baseball team, and not too many years ago was my MVP. Steve.
All right. Thanks to Congressman Martin and Henry Cuellar for leading this bipartisan effort. I grew up in the oil field. My dad worked for one of the majors, and back in the 80s, those majors began to say oil is finished in New Mexico. These discoveries that have been found in the last 2 years now are poised to produce more oil from the southeast part of New Mexico than has been produced in New Mexico's entire history across the entire state. That's the dramatic thing that's going on and creating jobs. If you were a truck driver in Hobbs, New Mexico, you could make $100,000 to $120,000 a year. These are not just fundamental changes in the market. These are dramatic changes in the market. And so this idea that we were out of oil has been changed by the technology that we have brought on board. And now then the pipelines are beginning to fill. Saudis are trying to collapse the market. And that oil from southeast New Mexico that has been one of the reasons that we are becoming more self-sufficient every day languishes in the pipelines, because the oil used in the refineries is a different kind. It's a light sweet that we make out of the shale. It's a better quality oil. It's a cheaper oil to refine, but you have to have refineries. And so that oil has no market at all right now. Countries around the world are asking for that. The Lithuanians are saying we would stop buying Russian oil today and buy that oil from southeast New Mexico. The contracts are in place, but we have a regulation standing in the way. Now the president could reverse this himself. I would ask him to do that, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and start doing what we can do to create jobs in America by sending our oil to those nations overseas that would use ours in place of the more expensive oil from some of the OPEC nations, from some of the people who fight us every day. And so it only makes sense to create American jobs with American energy, selling it to our friends across the oceans. So I think today is a special day. It's a bipartisan effort to recreate the job base in the oil and gas industry that the Saudis are trying to choke off. It's that simple. We either fight back or we let them use the markets against us. I think we should fight back. Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.